Vince and I are just starting off a long weekend, so we're just gonna finish packing up the car, and then we're gonna go pick up Bonnie, and we've got a long drive ahead of us. We're going on a bit of a road trip this weekend, and later in the video, I'm actually going to be announcing our next big international trip. And some of the things we're gonna be doing this weekend are part of us preparing for that trip, which I will explain all about that later in the video, so stay tuned to find out about that. For now, it's time to hit the road, and it is going to be the middle of the night by the time we arrive at our destination and set up camp.
We drove into the night all the way to West Virginia, where we set up camp and then went to sleep.
We made it. We're at Seneca Rocks, West Virginia. We got here just a little bit before 1 o'clock this morning, got a few hours of sleep, and now we're up and we're about to go rock climbing.
It was a beautiful sunny morning, but it was also cold out, so the first thing we did was stop at Yoakum's General Store for coffee and tea.
That's what we're climbing.
Then we drove across the street, grabbed all of our climbing gear, and started hiking towards Seneca Rocks. Our plan for the day was to climb up a 4-pitch trad route called Cons East in 3 groups of 2. We'd all meet at the summit and then rappel down the west cliff face from there. It was a steep hike with a bit of easy scrambling to get up to the base of the climb. When we finally got there, David and I started getting ready because we were going to go first. I don't really lead trad climbs anymore because I find it to be a bit beyond my personal risk tolerance, but all David ever wants to do is trad climb, so I partnered with him because he wanted to lead the entire climb and I wanted to lead none of it. And trad climbing is when there are no bolts already set into the cliff, and whoever's leading the climb will carry up a bunch of gear and place it into natural features of the wall, so then if you take a fall, hopefully you place your gear well enough that it'll catch you. So I followed David up after he finished the first pitch, and I grabbed all of the gear he'd placed on my way up. When I got to the anchor he'd set up, the view was fantastic and kind of dizzying. I gave him all his gear back and he started the second pitch. Then Vince showed up shortly after that, so I got to hang out with him until it was time for me to climb again. The second pitch started out with a traverse that actually looked a lot scarier than it really was, and when I got up to where the second pitch was supposed to end, David had skipped right past the bolts and built a trad anchor a little ways beyond because the pitch had been so short that he just decided to climb a little bit further. So we traded gear again, and then he started on pitch 3.5, which would be the final push up to the summit of the cliff.
Alright, see you in a few.
So there's not really anywhere to place here. You just have to kind of walk around, so just so you're aware.
Okay, well, I'll be on top rope, so.
It might be a little freaky, I'm just saying.
It turned out it was a little freaky, but that was okay because it was also really cool. I crawled across this ridgeline with a sheer drop into nothing on either side. I've never done a climb like this before, and it really wasn't a spot that I'd want to fall even though I was on top rope, but it was easy enough that I wasn't too scared. Eventually, I met up with David and we celebrated a successful climb, then hung out on the summit to wait for Vince, Bonnie, Travis, and Megan to join us. The west side of the wall was really windy and cold, but we could hop down below the ridge on the east face to warm up while we waited, and eventually everyone else made it up and we set up a rappel. David and I went first again, and this was definitely the tallest rappel I've ever done.
Ready?
The views of the wall on the way down were epic, and there was this part where we dropped off of an overhang and we were hanging in thin air as we descended. All in all, the climb was really fun, but I have to admit I was a little relieved when I touched down on solid ground, and then when everybody else made it safely as well. Once all 6 of us were back on the ground, we decided to split up for the rest of the day. Bonnie, Travis, and David wanted to climb more, and me, Vince, and Megan wanted to go on a hike to see the rocks from the North Summit Ridge. But first we had to hike back down to the car and drop off all of our climbing gear. After a quick snack at the car, we started hiking. The Seneca Rocks Trail crossed over a river that looked like a great spot for fly fishing, and then wound back and forth in a series of switchbacks until we finally made it back to the summit of the ridge. The view from up here was also really cool, but I have to admit, I think I liked the view from the south summit better. But I don't know, maybe that's just because climbing up to it had been so much fun. After a while, we hiked back down to the parking lot, and Vince flew his drone to see if we could find the other three up on the wall. He found them, and it looked like they still had a ways to go before they'd be coming back down for dinner, so we hung out for a while and spied on them while the sun started to set, which illuminated the rocks with golden light.
I'm cold. I've been waiting for the boys forever.
We're just gonna relax.
After a while, we went back to camp and tried to start a fire, but the wood we bought was kind of green and we didn't have any kindling, so it didn't go very well.
Think that's still gonna be on fire if you take it off of there?
Thankfully, this guy with a blowtorch was willing to lend us a hand.
This is how they did it back in the 1600s.
This must be the secret that everyone else around here knew that we did.
That's right.
Yeah, thank you.
so much.
Hey, no problem.
Vince and I made a pot of veggie korma for dinner,
Oh man, it kind of looks like vomit.
but luckily it didn't taste like vomit, and after dinner we went to bed. The next morning we stopped by Yoakum's for breakfast and then drove over to Cabins, which was about 20 minutes away from Seneca Rocks.
Me, Vince, Bonnie, and Megan are currently starting out a hike. We're taking North Fork Mountain to Chimney Top. This should be a pretty steep hike, and the reason we picked this one is because, big announcement, me and Vince are actually going to be trekking in Nepal later this year.
I actually talked a lot more about this, but apparently I wasn't recording, and I was just talking to myself, in the middle of the woods. But anyway, Vince and I booked a Mount Everest base camp trek for later this year, and we've started training to prepare for it because it's definitely going to be the most challenging hike we've ever done. So we've been walking a lot and doing strength training, and we've also been working out at this heinous staircase in our city. We'll go here and climb these things like 10 times, which is getting easier the more we go. So the reason I picked this particular hike is because it's about 5 miles round trip, and for the first half of that you gain 1,900 feet of elevation, which is a pretty decent workout.
Oh, it's steep.
You know what else will be steep?
Everest.
The trail was lined with beautiful mountain laurels in full bloom, and eventually we got to a rocky cliff top that dropped off into a view of a sprawling valley. But we weren't at the top yet, so we kept hiking, and we actually ended up passing right by the trail that would have led to Chimney Top, so we had to double back until we finally arrived at the main attraction, which was this cliff that looks like a chimney.
We went the wrong way.
This was a great spot to stop and eat a snack while we enjoyed the view, and we met some really nice hikers who gave us some recommendations for what to do that afternoon. After leaving Chimney Top, it was all downhill from there, and it didn't take very long to retrace our steps all the way back down to the trailhead. By the time we arrived at the car, we'd used most of our water, but luckily we found a spot to refill along the road.
We just found this mountain spring, so we're gonna refill our water bottles here.
After that, we went to this huge gift shop to try to regroup and decide what we wanted to do next. We ended up discussing it over ice cream and decided to go check out Dolly Sods Wilderness, which a lot of people had recommended to us that day.
We had some extra time, so we decided to come up to Dolly Sods Wilderness, which is an alpine tundra. It's sort of a wetland mountaintop landscape up here. So we're gonna do some more hiking, but it's gonna be a bit easier than that one we did earlier. It's gonna be pretty flat.
We decided to do the Bear Rocks Trail first, which is an easy mile-long hike with basically no elevation change to speak of. This felt like a pleasant stroll compared to Chimney Top, and I really liked seeing all of the different vegetation up here. This kind of ecosystem is actually more common further north, but the summit of Dolly Sods has a colder climate than the surrounding area because its elevation is much higher, reaching as high as 4,700 feet. This entire area is a huge mountaintop plateau covered in heathland and bogs, and supposedly this is beaver paradise because everyone we met told us about how they always see beavers up here. Of course, we wanted to see a beaver, so the logical thing to do next was hike the Beaver Dam Trail, and we quickly realized that this was going to be interesting because the trail led downhill and it had turned into a bit of a stream. It seems like this must be the path of least resistance for water to travel downhill here, so we were hopping across the rocks and back and forth across the stream for the entire hike down to the dam. And yeah, all of our feet got wet, but when we finally arrived at the bottom, the dam was really cool. We didn't see any beavers, but the lake they had created was massive, and the dam ran along the entire far end of it. We ended up flying the drone to get a better look, and this was definitely the biggest beaver dam I've ever seen. When we hiked back to the car, it was almost dinner time, so we drove back to Seneca Rocks and found David and Travis at Yoakum's. We all checked out the climbing gear shop and then got dinner at the Front Porch restaurant, and then we went back to camp where we managed to build an actual good fire to end the evening.
Good job, Vince, you made a fire!
Made a fire this time!
Yay!
The secret is kindling.
This is it. It's Monday, so we are making the long drive back home. But we did stop at Blackwater Falls State Park, and we are going to look at a waterfall first, and then it's time to hit the road.
It was just a short walk down to the falls, and along the way we found this wooden swing.
Hi, Caleb!
We got to see the waterfall from a couple of different observation decks, which was a nice way to end an exciting weekend. After watching the roaring waterfall for a little while, we said goodbye to West Virginia and started the long drive back to Michigan.
Now remember guys, if there's somebody already on the crag, it's all Travis's fault.
That's freaking right.
Whenever my fire successes.
Because successes aren't funny.
You're not funny.
I'm not funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good moss.